Hey, it's nice to see you. I mean, I don't see you, of course, but you see me. Not the way I am right now, but the way I was when I recorded this video, when I talked to my lens as if it was you. Strange, isn't it? I might be dead by the time you see this. Maybe I died in a car accident. Or maybe 100 years passed between the time that I've uttered these words and the time that you are listening to them. And I've long since been dead of old age. I hope that's the case. Anyhow, what I'm going to tell you today, whatever day it might be, is the way in which photographic technology created in us FOMO, fear of missing out. At the beginning, there were shadows. Shadows captured, postponed, frozen. A man named Thomas Wedgwood put leaves on metal plates that were coated with a layer of silver nitrate, and he put it under direct sunlight. Those proto-photographs lacked one of the most important qualities that we today associate with photography. The mechanism that created the image and the thing that it wanted to give an image to had no distance between them. Those photographs were done in the way of touch. These are lensless photographs. We call them photograms. In them, the object of the photograph is part of the very same device that is meant to take its image. About 30 years later, a photograph that is much more similar to what we think of as photography today was taken. A photograph that depicts an object that is in front and with distance from the device that was used to take it. It's titled The View from the Window at Les Grasses. It was taken by a man named Joseph Niesper Niepce. Not the way it should be pronounced. Anyhow, he used a material that hardens when exposed to light, bitumen of Yehuda, a kind of asphalt. He coated a metal plate with it and put it inside a camera obscura. After the exposure, he used different methods to remove all the parts that weren't hardened, all the soft parts. This stuff, bitumen of Yehuda, is not very sensitive, so exposure had to be very long. It is believed to have been at least 8 hours long and possibly even a few days long. Those two examples from the early days of photography touch on two of the main issues that are at the heart of photography: space and time. Wedgwood's photograms are different from photographs as we think of them today because there is no space between the object and the device that is taking its image. Niepce's photographs are different because of the time that they capture, the length of their exposure. Most photographs we see today are exposed between 1/30th and about 2,000th of a second. This change in exposure time actually changes the things that photography is used to capture an image of. So in early photography, we see a focus on things that persist, things that remain. And in later photography, we will see a focus on the things that pass. Look at this photograph from 1838, possibly the first photograph of a person. Technological advancements allowed for an exposure as short as about 5 minutes. This was a busy Parisian street, but the figures of all the people that were walking it during the time this photo was taken was lost in the long exposure. Only the person who had his shoe shined and the shoe shiner were immobile enough to be captured. Photography here still centers on what persists, and we can witness here an important truth about photography. It does not show us reality in a simple, direct sense. It does not simply imitate our eye, but the difference between how we see reality and how photography shows it to us is not a defect. It is actually one of the main reasons we use photography. In the space that opens up between photography and reality, we find the phenomena of the photogenic. We find that there's a way that we can present things to the camera to make them look better than reality, to make them look like the best version of themselves. Between 1837 and 1880, most people who interacted with photography did so either as viewers or as subjects. Photography demanded a lot of skill and knowledge of chemistry. Portrait photography became more common. Different devices were made to support people so that they can remain still for the duration of the exposure. A portrait photograph was expensive, but not as expensive as having your likeness painted. And so many people who couldn't afford a portrait of themselves in the past could afford one now. But often they couldn't afford much more than one. And so the question arises, when do you have your one portrait taken? One of them is dead. A short time after a person dies, before decomposition becomes apparent, you can still take a photograph of them. If you don't have a photo of your loved one from when they were still alive, well, at least you can make sure that their image won't be lost to forgetfulness. In the practice of post-mortem photography, we see photographs that are used to overcome temporality, to make persistent a thing that passes. We can only imagine how precious the single photo of a deceased family member must have been. In the early days of post-mortem photography, photographs were not reproducible. They were not prints or copies. The photograph you had was the very same piece of metal that was used inside the camera to capture the image. There was only an original. Compare that to the many photographs that a deceased person in our time has from when they were alive. Today we look at different photos of the deceased to see how they were in different moments throughout their lives. That is very different than the weight that the single photo held back then, representing a whole of a person, an entire lifetime, a sum of what that person was. In this photograph, we can see a scale of levels of submersion in the order of the photogenic. The older sibling knows how to be photographed. He understands something about the photographic mechanism and his role in it. Looking at his face, what do you think he feels? If you'd ask me, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I think he feels like someone who is being photographed. Now look at his younger sister. Her face tells of some emotion, maybe even a lot of emotion, but we don't know anything about its nature. Sad or excited, broken or rejuvenated. Her younger brother looks very similar to the older brother, but the expression is slightly different. What do you think he feels? I think he feels sad. or melancholic, or confused, or shocked. Though we can't determine which specific emotion he feels, there is a sense of distress that is able to escape the hold of the effort to appear for the photograph. With the youngest, there is no question as to his emotions. He hurts. He cannot hold it together for the photograph. He is not able to maintain the difference between his internal world and the world of appearance. But that makes sense. He wasn't given an easy task to look nice for the very last photograph of his young sister. The photogenic. We are introduced into the order of the photogenic with time, biographical time, and also historical time. It wasn't so long ago when no one had a notion about how to be photographed. Today you can see children younger than 2 showing behaviors that are a result of being introduced into a photogenic order. It was only around 1920 when people started smiling in photographs. It was possibly through advertising, specifically advertisement for cameras, that people learned to smile in photographs. The advertisements showed people being happy to be photographed. The photographed smile immediately sets the stage for a reversal. First, one could capture an image of a happy moment. Later, one could bring about a moment so to take a happy photograph. One freezes for the camera. One might tilt their head slightly to the side so to bring their best side forward, showing it to the camera. One shows a partiality, but the mechanical nature of photography bestows upon it a halo of objectivity. This is how things really are. The use of photography for postmortem images had to do with time. Another important function that photography held for the masses back then had to do with space. Photography allowed people to see places where they have never been and might never be. For instance, people in Europe were able to see images from Palestine, see the places where Jesus was told to have done all these amazing miracles. These two uses of photography have to do with two complementary modes of being. The landscape photograph facilitates the act of seeing, and the portrait photograph facilitates the act of being seen, that is, of showing, presenting oneself. In the year 1888, the Kodak Corporation introduced its first camera. This revolutionary tool was extremely light compared to cameras that came before it, and it was also extremely easy to operate. It was also mass-produced, making photography much more affordable. At that time, very many people were able to move from one side of the camera to the other side. That is, many people became photographers. This revolution brought about a fusion of the two functions of photography, that of space and that of time. They came together in the family photograph. The family photograph is both a portrait and a landscape. Often the family stands with its back to the landscape, so that both landscape and family are presented to the viewer. The landscape embodying space and the family embodying time. It is as if the photograph says, "We were there back then." Not only does the Kodak camera bring more people into the photograph or makes more people into photographers, but it also creates a situation where there are way more photographs. And so no longer does a single photograph have to carry the weight of representing wholly a person as if it was a symbol or an icon. Each photograph is part of many photographs that can constitute a story, like the story of a family as it shows itself to the viewer through the family album. And so it is also in this sense that photography stops focusing on the persistent, for instance, by trying to capture the essence of a person in a single studio photograph. Instead, it moves to the fleeting, so that we can take a picture and look at it later and say something like, "Oh yeah, remember when we were there? I totally forgot about that." The Kodak camera, together with other cameras of that time and cameras that came later, had a button. Though it sounds mundane, this is an important change in the function of photography. In early photography, photographers just moved the lens cup to expose the film to light, and then they reinstalled it. With the introduction of the button, exposure was done mechanically, which means it was done much quicker. Photography could finally give image to things that move. No longer constrained to the immobile, photography becomes kin to hunting. There were even cameras back then that were designed after guns. Photography becomes an act of capturing. To capture a photograph, to capture a moment, to make of the moving something frozen, to make of the animated something still, to make of the living something dead. In the mid-90s, digital cameras became much more common. This development, together with the broadband internet, brought us to where we are today. Each photograph practically costs nothing to produce, and it does not need to be developed or printed in order to be shown. This makes it so that the function of photography as overcoming the passage of time, of showing things how they were, greatly diminishes. On social media, we mostly see photos very shortly after they were taken. But because of that, the function of space becomes amplified. We are constantly seeing what is happening at this moment somewhere else. And in a society that is ever more submerged in the photogenic order, the thing happening elsewhere is very beautiful. We long to be there in the photo. Our uneasiness pulls us there. But even when we arrive at that place where the beautiful image was taken, it does not seem to be it. For one, it always passes. Nothing living is as frozen as the photograph. Beauty that seems eternal in the photograph turns out to be fleeting in real life. This beauty, much like food, is destroyed in its consumption. So we look for another image to take part in. There is no more family album to tell a story. Instead, there is a stream of images that culminate in a blurry image of a someone that was. We know for sure this someone was. We have the evidence, the photographic evidence. There was a someone, and that someone appeared in front of a lens. Hey, you're still here. Nice. This is my second video on this channel. If you liked it, you should check out the first one. Yeah, I'm still learning how to make these videos. Maybe you've seen specific places in the video I sound kind of stressed. It's hard talking to a camera. It's weird. It's not intuitive. But yeah, I think I'm getting better. So if you have any thoughts about this video, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear them. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.